In a small town in rural Ohio, nestled between overgrown cornfields and a rusted railway, there was an old amusement park known as Whispering Pines. It had once been a thriving destination for families, but after a series of mysterious accidents, it was abandoned overnight. The only thing left was a dilapidated Ferris wheel that creaked in the wind, standing tall like a sentinel over the forgotten grounds. One autumn evening, a group of college friends, Sarah, Jake, Emily, and Marcus, decided to explore the park. They were drawn by the legend of a ghost known as the girl in the white dress, said to haunt the old Carousel, seeking revenge for her untimely death. The tale had intrigued them since childhood, and they were determined to uncover the truth. As they approached the entrance, the air grew heavy with a palpable tension. The once bright colors of the park had faded to muted grays, and the silence was broken only by the rustling leaves. With flashlights in hand, they stepped through the broken gate, their beams dancing over the remnants of a bygone era. Peeling paint, toppled carnival games, and a dusty popcorn machine that still smelled faintly of butter. "Let's check out the carousel first," Emily suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. The others nodded, though a chill ran down their spines. They trudged through the underbrush, the sounds of crunching leaves echoing in the stillness. The carousel loomed ahead, its once vibrant horses now faded and chipped. As they stepped closer, a sense of dread washed over them. The air felt electric, charged with something unnameable. Sarah, feeling a shiver creep up her spine, pulled out her phone and began recording. "Look at this place," Jake said, trying to keep the mood light. But his bravado faltered as he noticed the faint outline of a figure near the carousel's center. It looked like a girl in a flowing white dress, her long hair obscuring her face. He blinked and the figure vanished. "Did you see that?" he gasped, his heart racing. The others turned, but all that met their eyes was the empty carousel. "It's just the wind," Marcus said, trying to sound unconcerned, but his voice quivered. "Let's just take a quick look around." As they circled the carousel, they began to hear soft whispers, barely audible yet undeniably present. The words were indistinct, like the echoes of a conversation just out of reach. They exchanged nervous glances, the atmosphere thickening around them. "Guys, I think we should go," Emily said, her instinct screaming at her to leave, but curiosity held them captive. They wanted to uncover the truth behind the legend. With renewed resolve, they pressed on. Suddenly, the carousel creaked to life, the horses beginning to move as if awakened from a long slumber. The sound of music, warped and distorted, filled the air, a haunting lullaby that sent shivers down their spines. The girls screamed, and even Marcus stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. As they turned to flee, Sarah's flashlight flickered, casting strange shadows that seemed to dance around them. In the flickering light, they saw her, the girl in the white dress standing on one of the horses, her face obscured by a veil. But as the light stabilized, she revealed herself. Her eyes were hollow, deep wells of sorrow and anger, and her mouth twisted into a chilling grin. "Help me," she whispered, her voice echoing in their minds. "They won't let me go." Panicked, they ran, darting between the abandoned rides, hearts pounding. But the whispers grew louder, turning into frantic pleas, drowning out their own screams. Sarah stumbled, and Jake rushed back to help her. As he pulled her to her feet, a cold grip wrapped around his ankle. He looked down to find a skeletal hand, emerging from the ground, pulling him into the earth. "Jake!" Sarah screamed, but the ground swallowed him whole. The others could do nothing but watch in horror as he disappeared. "Keep running," Marcus shouted, and they sprinted towards the exit, the whispers morphing into laughter, echoing around them like a twisted serenade. Just as they reached the gate, the Ferris wheel creaked ominously, and the girl stood there again, this time blocking their way. Her expression was one of fury and desperation. "You can't leave. You have to stay." Without thinking, Emily lunged forward, pushing the girl aside. The ghost's hand brushed against her, sending a jolt of ice through her veins. But they burst through the gate, collapsing onto the grass outside, gasping for breath. Behind them, The park fell silent once more, the carousel still and the Ferris wheel unmoving. As they looked back, the girl stood at the entrance, her silhouette fading into the shadows, a final whisper echoing in the night. "Help me." Days later, the town awoke to find the park had returned to its eerie silence. But something was different. The old amusement park, it seemed, had claimed a new soul. Jake was never seen again, and the townsfolk spoke in hushed tones of the girl in the white dress, waiting for the next group of curious souls, forever seeking to fill the void left by the lost. And every autumn, as the leaves turned and the air grew crisp, a faint melody drifted from the abandoned park, a haunting lullaby inviting the brave and the foolish to take the last ride. Months passed since that fateful night at Whispering Pines, and the story of Jake's disappearance became a local legend, whispered among the townsfolk as they sat around campfires or huddled in dimly lit diners. Sarah, Emily, and Marcus, though shaken, felt an unshakable pull to return. They needed closure, or perhaps they were drawn by guilt, believing they could somehow save Jake from the grip of the girl in the white dress. One evening, the trio reconvened, the autumn wind carrying a chill that settled deep in their bones. "We have to go back," Marcus insisted, gripping the map he had painstakingly drawn based on Old Town records. "We can't let this go. We owe it to Jake." "No," Emily replied, her voice quivering. "What if it wants more of us? We barely escaped last time. But what if he's still there?" Sarah interjected, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination. "We can't leave him behind." After hours of argument, they agreed to return, armed with flashlights, an old camera, and a small pouch of salt, something Sarah had read might repel spirits. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they drove through the winding roads, tension hanging in the air like fog. When they arrived, the park appeared unchanged, as if time had frozen in that single moment of abandonment. The Ferris wheel loomed like a ghost itself, and the carousel sat in a haunting stillness, waiting for its next unwitting guests. "We stick together this time," Marcus reminded them as they stepped through the broken gate, the hinges creaking like a warning. They moved cautiously, flashlights illuminating the remnants of laughter that echoed in their memories. As they approached the carousel, the familiar whispers began again, slithering through the air. This time, the words were clearer, more insistent, wrapping around them like an invisible noose. "Help me! Help me!" They exchanged uneasy glances. Sarah clenched her fists, determination battling with fear. "We have to find Jake. He might be trapped here like she was." They made their way to the center of the carousel, where the girl had appeared last time. As they circled, the music began to play again, a warped melody that seemed to seep into their bones. Emily shivered, a deep sense of foreboding washing over her. Then, in a corner of the carousel, they spotted something, an old locket, its surface tarnished but still gleaming under the moonlight. Sarah reached for it, her fingers trembling as she recognized the engraved initials. "J.M. Jake's," she whispered, her heart pounding. This was his. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The whispers turned into shrieks, and the carousel began to spin, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The air grew thick with a darkness that clung to their skin, and the laughter of children echoed, sweet and sinister. "Run!" Marcus shouted, yanking Sarah back as the ride picked up speed. But it was too late. The girl appeared before them again, her eyes wide with longing, yet filled with a rage that sent chills through their veins. "Why did you come back?" she wailed, her voice a haunting melody. "You can't leave now. You must stay." Just then, a gust of wind knocked Emily off balance, and she fell to her knees. In that moment, she felt a cold hand grip her wrist, pulling her toward the carousel. "Jake!" she screamed, the desperation in her voice palpable. With every ounce of strength, Sarah grabbed Emily, pulling her back just as the ground beneath them began to shift. Shadows flickered around them, growing denser and more oppressive. The Ferris wheel creaked ominously, as if awakening from a long slumber, and they realized with horror that the park itself was alive, feeding off their fear. "Get the salt!" Marcus yelled, rummaging through his backpack. He flung a handful towards the ghostly figure, and the girl recoiled, her expression twisting from anger to confusion. But the distraction was fleeting. The carousel spun faster, the music blaring, drowning out their thoughts. Shadows coiled around them, weaving tighter as they struggled against an unseen force. Emily felt her heart race, her breath coming in short gasps. "Jake!" she called again, her voice breaking. "We're here. We're coming for you." In that moment, the spinning stopped, and the music cut off abruptly. A figure emerged from the darkness, the outline of a boy, disheveled and pale, standing just beyond the edge of the carousel. "Emily!" Jake's voice was hoarse, filled with desperation. "Help me!" With renewed strength, Sarah and Marcus pulled Emily forward, but the girl in the white dress stepped between them, a furious look etched across her spectral features. "He's mine!" she shrieked, her voice echoing like thunder. The ground shook, and the park seemed to pulse with energy. Shadows surged toward them, and they felt an overwhelming pressure, as if the very air was thickening, closing in. "Jake!" Emily shouted, reaching out toward him, her heart aching with the realization of the bond they once shared. "We won't leave you." But as the shadows closed in, the figure of Jake wavered, flickering like a candle in the wind. A moment of connection passed between them, a promise unspoken. "Help me," he whispered, the words trailing off into the night. The girl's laughter echoed, high-pitched and chilling. "You have to choose," she cried. "One of you must stay." Panic surged through them as the shadows tightened their grip. The decision loomed like a specter over them: stay and save one, or escape and leave the other behind. And in that moment of chaos, something shifted in the atmosphere. A crack in the darkness that sent a surge of hope through their hearts. They felt a force, an energy building, as if the very spirit of the park was awakening to their plea. "Together!" Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the din. "We do this together." As they joined hands, the shadows recoiled, the girl's expression shifting from rage to confusion. The air crackled with tension, and the carousel began to spin again, slower this time, as if it were testing their resolve. "Help me!" Jake cried out again, and for a fleeting moment, the park held its breath. In that heart-stopping instant, they knew they had to act. But how? How could they face the darkness and save Jake from the girl's vengeful grasp? The answer loomed just out of reach, entwined in the whispers of the spirits around them, as the carousel continued to turn, their fate hanging in the balance. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. As the carousel continued to spin, Sarah felt a surge of courage. "We can't let her win," she shouted, tightening her grip on Emily and Marcus. "Jake needs us. We're not afraid of you." The girl in the white dress paused, her expression wavering between fury and uncertainty. The shadows swirling around them seemed to hesitate, as if taken aback by their defiance. "Help me!" Jake's voice was strained, and the connection between them pulsed with urgency. They could see him clearly now, his features gaunt, as if he had been drained of all color and light. He reached out, desperation in his eyes. "Hold on, Jake," Emily cried, her heart racing. "We're coming for you." The three of them took a step forward, and the girl let out a howl, a sound that resonated with despair. "You can't take him. He belongs to me now." "No," Sarah shouted back, her voice steady. "He's our friend. We won't leave him behind." In that moment, a wave of energy surged through them, a fierce warmth that pushed back against the encroaching shadows. It was as if the very essence of their friendship illuminated the darkness, creating a barrier against the girl's wrath. "Let him go," Marcus yelled, raising the salt pouch like a shield. He flung another handful toward the girl, and for the first time, she recoiled, her ethereal form flickering like a dying flame. "Stay away," she screamed, her voice shattering into echoes, reverberating around the park. The laughter of the spirits faded, replaced by a growing silence that enveloped them. The carousel slowed, the music fading to a haunting hum. "Jake!" Sarah cried again, her heart breaking at the sight of him. "We're almost there. Just a little longer." With a sudden burst of determination, Emily stepped forward, releasing her grip on her friends. "We're not afraid of you," she shouted at the girl. "We're not leaving Jake behind, no matter what." As she stepped closer, the shadows seemed to retreat, swirling in a disorganized frenzy. The girl's eyes widened in disbelief, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah saw a glimmer of something behind the rage-a yearning for connection, a reminder of the girl she once was. "Help me," the girl whispered, her voice suddenly soft, revealing an unexpected vulnerability. In that instant, Sarah understood. The girl had been lost for so long, consumed by her anger and sorrow. She wasn't just a malevolent spirit. She was a victim of the park's darkness, bound to it by her unfulfilled desires. "We can help you," Sarah said, her voice steadying. "But you have to let him go. Let us all go." The girl's form flickered, caught between worlds, her expression shifting. "They won't let me go," she murmured, pain etched in her ghostly features. "Then we'll help you fight them," Marcus said, stepping forward with renewed resolve. "You're not alone anymore." In that moment, the shadows began to shrink, drawn back as if repelled by their unity. The carousel's music warped and twisted, now playing a melody of sorrow and hope, intertwining with the whispers that once filled the air. Jake's figure grew clearer, his features more defined as he reached out with trembling hands. "You have to trust us," he called, his voice breaking. "You have to believe." Together, they formed a circle around the girl, holding hands, their collective strength building like a beacon of light in the suffocating darkness. "We're here for you," Emily said, her voice calm. "We're all in this together." The girl hesitated, caught between the past and the possibility of release. "But I'm so afraid." "We know," Sarah replied gently, "but you don't have to be. We'll face it together." As they stood united, the shadows quaked, and the carousel began to spin faster, its energy pulsating like a heartbeat. The girl's form began to shimmer, the anger melting away, replaced by a haunting beauty. "Help me," she whispered again, this time laced with desperation and hope. With a final push, the group focused all their energy, their determination radiating outward like a wave. "Let go of the past," they shouted in unison. "You are free." The shadows recoiled as the carousel reached its peak speed, and with one last cry, the girl dissolved into a cascade of shimmering light, illuminating the darkened park. In that moment, the shadows that had haunted Whispering Pines were banished, retreating into the corners of the forgotten rides. The air cleared, and a sense of peace settled over the park as the last notes of the music faded into silence. The carousel slowed to a stop, and Jake was there, solid and whole, stepping forward into the light. "You did it," he said, tears glistening in his eyes. "You freed her. You saved me." The trio rushed forward, enveloping him in a tight embrace, relief washing over them like a cleansing tide. The weight of the park's despair lifted, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant sound of the wind. As they turned to leave, the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the once haunted grounds. They glanced back at the carousel, now still and peaceful, a reminder of the darkness that had been overcome. But as they stepped through the gate, Sarah felt a lingering chill, a shadow flickering at the edge of her vision. She paused, looking back one last time, and saw a wisp of white drifting gently across the carousel. "Goodbye," it seemed to whisper, a final note of gratitude. With hearts lighter than they had felt in months, they walked away from Whispering Pines, the dawn illuminating their path. The girl in the white dress was free, but her story would linger in their minds, a reminder that even in darkness, hope could shine through. Yet, as they left, the wind carried a familiar tune, a haunting lullaby that danced on the breeze, echoing softly as they vanished into the morning light, leaving behind a park that had once been a place of fear, now transformed into a cradle of freedom. As the sun rose over Whispering Pines, the air was filled with a serene quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. Sarah, Jake, Emily, and Marcus made their way back to the car, hearts still racing from their harrowing experience. But as they reached the edge of the park, A faint echo of the carousel's melody lingered in the breeze, a haunting lullaby that reminded them of the girl in the white dress. They paused, glancing back one last time. In the morning light, the park looked transformed. The colors seemed brighter, and the air lighter. It was as if the darkness had been washed away, replaced by a gentle warmth. The shadows that once clung to the rides were gone, leaving only the memories of what had happened. As they drove away, they felt a sense of closure wash over them. They had faced their fears, saved a friend, and helped a lost spirit find peace. But in the depths of the park, the remnants of the past lingered just out of sight, a reminder that while some spirits are freed, others may still be bound, waiting for the next brave souls to answer their call. And somewhere, in the whispers of the wind, the girl in the white dress smiled, her essence forever intertwined with the hearts of those who dared to remember her story. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.